How's it going, guys? Thank you for joining me. Let's have a quick conversation about Georges St-Pierre and his future. Okay. Today's Thursday, December 6th, and yesterday was Wednesday, December 5th. And on Wednesday, Georges St-Pierre was on TSN, and when he was asked what was his timeline, what was his plan for the future, is he planning to come back to the UFC, and if he does, where would he like to go? Would he like to remain at 185, and compete and fight against Robert Whittaker to unify his title, or would he drop down to 170 and recapture the welterweight title? Okay, so when that question was asked, this was the response. Okay, guys, I'm just going to read it to you. He says, and I quote, "We talk about it, but I'm not sure if I compete." Let's start that all over again. "We talk about it, but I'm not sure if I compete. I will go back to 185. I don't think so." Why? Why? Are these guys that big? Are these guys, like, how big are these guys? I mean, I realize that he's a big guy, but when it comes to the natural middleweight, he's gonna have a bit of a tough time. And going to his match versus Michael Bisping, a lot of people, myself included, is that we believe that he was the favorite. But however, guys, if you guys have seen my previous video, you guys know who I picked to win that fight. But regardless, that's not what we're talking about. As right now, Georges St-Pierre, he's taking a bit of a time off, but when he comes back, he did sign a 3-fight contract, and he just completed one of his 3 fights, and I believe that was stated by Dana White. Okay, I realized that Dana White and his words, it changes from one moment to the next, and you guys, we've seen this before. Dana White would say and stated, look, you know what? He is promoter. He is a fight promoter, and this is what Dana White said: is that if Georges St-Pierre go and compete and win the middleweight title, he must remain at middleweight and he must compete and defend his title. But as right now, just a bit over a month after George won the title, well, you know what? He does want to go back. George does not want to go back to 185 and defend his title. He even stated that. He even previously stated that these guys are bigger and these guys are massive. And I honestly believe one of the reasons that he took the title fight versus Michael Bisping, for the simple reasons that Georges St-Pierre believed 100% in his mind that he could beat him. Okay? And to me, that is the right mindset. I believe that you should never take a fight. If you're a fighter, I am not a fighter, but if I was, I like a challenge, but going to any fight, if I was a fighter, I am going in there, I am going to win. If not, I might do it just for payday. But Georges St-Pierre, he's not me. His mental mindset is above higher when it comes to fighting, and I am 100% believe when Georges accepted that fight, he believed 100% without a shadow of a doubt that he will beat Michael Bisping. And I totally 100% agree. But how about his future? What should he do? Okay. According to his response, he says, "I don't think so," which is, I don't think so as I don't think I'll be coming back to 185. Okay, fine, fair enough. If that's the case, move down one weight division to go down to welterweight. And George, I can tell you this with a shadow of a doubt, 1%, Tyron Woodley would give you a title would give you a title shot in a heartbeat. Okay, for 2 simple reasons. The number 1 reason, the number 2 reason, let's start with the number 2 reason, is that he would like to have the opportunity to beat you, George. You're the best welterweight that has ever competed within the octagon, within the octagon inside the UFC. Okay, there might be some argument that you are 1 and 2 versus Georges St-Pierre and Ben Askren. I disagree. I believe that George is number 1 and Ben is possibly top 5. But however, Ben Askren, he is undefeated, and at one championship 65, that was his last fight, and he stated that he has retired from competitive competition unless a Georges St-Pierre fight was offered, that he might reconsider and come back and fight against George. Let's get back to George. Okay, George, you know what? I don't think there should be any argument. He is the GOAT. When it comes to the welterweight division, Georges St-Pierre is the GOAT. And Tyron Woodley would like to have the opportunity to compete against George. And if he beats him, he could say that I've beaten the best welterweight that has ever competed. And in that case, in that situation, by competing the best, you're the best. Okay. As of right now, Tyron Woodley, he is the champ of the welterweight division, but Georges St-Pierre, he's still inside the UFC, but he's competing at a higher division. And Woodley has stated just this week that he's willing to vacate the welterweight title and move up a weight class to 185 for a chance to fight against Georges St-Pierre. Okay, I'm not sure if he stated that he would like to fight for the title as well. I'm not sure if that was stated, but regardless, let's say George vacant the title and Robert Whittaker became the UFC Middleweight Undisputed Champion. You know what? If George vacant the title, the undisputed title will be disputed because, well, Robert did not win because George vacant the title. Okay, so that is the number 2 reason to fight and compete against one of the best fighter that has ever competed in the welterweight division. And in my opinion, there's no argument that he is the best fighter that has ever competed in that weight class. That's number 2. And number 1, that's right, money. Fighting Georges St-Pierre as a champ, you will get a cut of the pay-per-view. And according to Dana White from UFC 217, the projected forecast from a lot of people, including myself as well, when this topic of conversation came up, and that is, how many pay-per-view do you think UFC 217 is gonna sell? Me personally, I predicted that it's gonna be around 800 and 850. And I listened to the MMA Hour, MMA the Luke Thomas show, and yeah, and the MMA Beat, and they are stating the same amount as well. But however, according to Dana White, after the event, Dana White stated, I know it's from Dana White, he tend to like sometimes oversaturate the number, but he said that the number is above 1.5 million. 1.5 million in pay-per-view sales. He didn't say the exact number, but he says it's blew it out of the water, and he says it's above 1.5 million. Okay, 1.5 to 1.8. Well, I believe that 1 point is a lot, but regardless, this is where I'm going with this. Okay, as a champion, as a UFC champion, you get a cut out the pay-per-view, and the percentage, the amount, the dollar amount, is depending on the amount that you sell. And I believe that this was previously shown. I realized that this is old news when the Randy Couture and the Eddie Alvarez, when those guys was going to court, and how Eddie wanted to leave Bellator during the Bjorn Remini as the president. And one of the things that came up was that is when it comes to contract matching, Eddie Alvarez took Bellator to court, saying that you cannot offer or match the UFC contract for the simple fact that Bellator at that time does not have a pay-per-view model, and they do not sell pay-per-view. Okay, when this was taken to court, Eddie Alvarez's contract was open, it was shown, and Bellator stated that all they did was took the UFC's name and put Bellator's name on it. They matched it. But however, that's not the case when it goes back to Bellator that at that time does not produce some pay-per-view content. But this is the reason why I brought this up, is that every 200,000 pay-per-view, according to Eddie Hour's contract, and Randy Couture, it's very similar. Every 250,000 pay-per-view sales, they would get a starting point of $1 to $2. Then it would go from 200 to 500. Then they would get about $2 to $3. Then that from that to 750, they would jump to like maybe like $5. And then from like 1 million and above, it's like $7 to $10. Okay, and this is the reason why I brought this up. Michael Bisping, he has been a company man for the UFC for, I believe, over like 13, 14 years. He's been there for a very long time. Okay, and as being the champion, I believe that the UFC will take care of him very well. He's a businessman, he's a company man, and he has done everything that well, essentially everything that the UFC asked for. And when they needed a main event, he stepped up. The perfect example would be UFC Fight Night 121, the last one, which was it's when Anderson Silva had to pull out due to a tainted supplement, due to a second failed drug test from USADA. Who stepped up? Michael Bisping stepped up on 3 weeks' notice to take on Kelvin Gastelum to make sure that the UFC 121 Shanghai have a main event. Okay, and the reason why I brought this up, the reason why this is significant, is that at UFC 217, Michael Bisping was fighting Georges St-Pierre, and I am 100% sure, 100% sure that he received no less. Okay, well, let's say 99.99% sure, because I don't know his actual contract, but from what I've seen, and from what was said throughout, like, essentially like my lifetime of watching and studying and observing the world of mixed martial arts, I am nearly 100% sure that Michael Bisping received no less than $5 for pay-per-view buy when it exceed $1 million. Oh, sorry, 1 million buy. So after that's being said, let's say the pay-per-view sale was 1.5 million. Michael Bisping would walk out with 7.5 million, and for that night he received $500,000 as the show money and $40,000 as the champ. So as in total, with those numbers, I expect Michael Bisping at UFC 217 walk out with no less than $8,040,000, and this of course is before tax. And you guys, you know what? That is what Tyron Woodley wants. He wants the money, he wants the big payday, and he's willing to vacate the welterweight title if he has the opportunity to move up to 185 to compete against George. And he never stated that it does not have to be for the title. Just saying that he just stated that I want to fight George. But the question is that if that happened, will Tyron Woodley get a cut out to pay-per-view? Because if he does not, why we do it? But however, if George decides to move down to 170, where it is his natural weight class, where it's his home weight, his natural weight, 100% Tyron Woodley would get a cut out to pay-per-view. Okay, and if you guys, Georges St-Pierre, he sells a pay-per-view, and I realized that he's been gone for over 4 years before his fight versus Michael Bisping. But however, you guys must consider that the Canadian market, the Canadian people, we love Georges St-Pierre. Georges St-Pierre is the second son to Canada. First is Wayne Gretzky. We love Wayne Gretzky, and George is a very close second. So there's, when it comes to Canadian idol, Canadian hero, it's Gretzky, then George. There's no and, if, or buts about it. That is the two. That is the 1 and 2. And Gretzky's been out. He's been gone. He has not been skated. He has not done anything competitive as well for a while. But Georges St-Pierre, as of this moment, as right now, he is still competing. I am fairly sure that the 1.5 or 1.8 pay-per-view sale that Dana White stated, about 60% of that is from the Canadian fan. So yeah. So if George was to fight again, I believe that he will. 185, maybe not. You know what? I don't think so, because George is in for the. He even stated that one of the reasons why he's coming back is for the money fight. Is for the money fight. Is for the legacy fight. One legacy that he just made was capturing a second title, and that was money fight from as well, because it's history. He just made history. And number two, if he would come back, which what he's doing right now, and recaptured a second title in welterweight, a title that he has never lost against Tyron Woodley, and that by itself is another history that is being made, that is attempted to be made, regardless of what happened. Well, mostly to Tyron, but for George, I don't see a reason. I don't see Dana White and the UFC forcing him to vacate the middleweight title unless George choose to vacate that title and drop down to 170, because it would be such a big storyline if Georges St-Pierre would win the middleweight title, drop down to 170, and try to recapture the title that he has never lost from Tyron Woodley, and become the second person in the history of the UFC to hold two titles simultaneously. That's quite a storyline. That is quite a storyline. And on the flip side, and that is George's story, and on the flip side, Tyron Woodley's story would be the return of Georges St-Pierre versus the current welterweight champion, which is Tyron Woodley, and he's been beating everyone since he captured the welterweight title. And now the storyline for Tyron Woodley is who's better? Who's better right now? Who's the best of the best? Who is the actual GOAT of the welterweight division? The returning GOAT in Georges St-Pierre, or the current champion, which is Tyron Woodley? You guys, that sells itself. I don't care. I don't care how much the price tag would be. Let's say the price tag is $100. People are going to pay for it. Everyone's going to pay for it. George will be happy. He'll make his money, because at the end of the day, guys, at the end of the day, if Georges St-Pierre accepts this fight, he's got a win-win-win situation for him. Number one win, if he wins, simultaneous middleweight champion. Number two win. Okay, this is the assumption that he drops down. Okay, number two win is that if he loses, he still wins, because he still get the title, and he didn't really lose anything. He still get the middleweight champion. He had a chop, he lost, but he still have that title. He's still considered as a champion, so that's not a loss. And number three, at the end of the day, all these fighters, if you're a fighter and if you compete at any form of a competitive sport, you are, well, I won't say like any competitive sport. Let's say any form of combat sport, you are essentially a prize fighter. And what these guys fight for? Money. They're trying to get the biggest payday that's possible. Can you blame them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Tyron Woodley, I stated previously, a chance to beat the GOAT of the welterweight division, a chance to establish himself as one of the greatest welterweight that has ever competed, and by beating George, he will be up there. Okay, he will be up there, and of course, my number one reason, just like every single one of these fighters, is that he is a prize fighter as well. He's here to compete, to win, and win or lose, him as a fighter or any fighter, they are here to get paid. And fighting Georges St-Pierre, it will be the biggest pit of his life. It will be the biggest pit of his career. If you don't believe me, ask Michael Bisping. Okay, that's it, guys. So that is my quick thought on the possibility of Georges St-Pierre coming back to the UFC at middleweight 185 or at a welterweight 170. Okay, guys, thank you very much for listening. If you have not, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comment section below. And I will talk to you soon. Peace. Take care.